And that's the sounds like something very much inspired by the sound of the Pixies. Black Francis, if you're listening, please reach out to John. He's been waiting for years now. Hey, everybody out there. Welcome back to another episode of the Audiophiles. It's Andy and it's John, and it is time to dig into some music. So, John, what have you got on deck?
Called Scarce. You heard of them?
A band called Scarce. No, I can't say that I have.
Good, good, good.
Yeah.
The track is called All Sideways.
Oh, everything's gone all sideways. All right. Well, yeah, this is interesting. A band I'm not familiar with. Obviously, a song that I'm also therefore not familiar with. Let me go off and give it an old spinaroo and come back and give you my thoughts. Take me back to what sounds like early to mid 90s alternative rock. It's almost a bit of like this, for what to my ear sounds like kind of the space rocky sound. I think it's what leads into that is that opening kind of transmission-y sound, almost like you're scanning a radio, and you're hearing the frequencies in there as well. But then this wave of just chuggy, hazy, distorted guitar kind of comes crashing in, along with obviously the rhythm section as well. But yeah, it really hits you like a force, kind of pulling you like gravity. It's interesting. Let's kind of let that hit again. Sonic pitch.
There's a sky, there's a sky, and so there's a sky, there's a sky.
There's more than just a touch of Pixies to this, which I'm sure John will appreciate that observation.
There's a sky, there's a sky, there's a sky, and so there's a sky, there's a sky, there's a sky. Kiss me once on the eye.
And even that very Black Francis-y. So I can see why John was drawn to this one, and why I'm enjoying it as much as I am as well.
Kiss me once and say goodbye. Why?
I just make a Pixies observation, and now we have a second vocalist joining in the form of a female voice. This is started to check all the Pixie adjacent boxes. And she's the bass player. the little warbly bits of guitar that earlier, I don't know if it cut me off, but I was thinking like it's hard to compete when you're observing naturally while there's also a song playing. So if it wasn't conveyed clearly, there are these like sonic touches and like faint blasts on the guitar that you can that you can catch in the mix as well, where it's just like very pitchy, but in a good way. I mean, it's just the you know the positive side of the dissonant sword, right? You know what I mean? That you're hearing there is just these little noises. They all sound great. They add character and texture to the song.
Kiss me once on the eye. Kiss me once and say goodbye.
Even that ending has a little bit of that space rocky sound to it, and more of that odd twitchy dissonance in the guitar that you could catch in bits throughout the song, though they were a little. There was other stuff happening, so they weren't as easily as discernible as they were there in the very end. But what also is really interesting about that guitar, I don't know, the slight agony in that guitar is that it almost mimics his vocal approach at times too, when he clearly injects this like affectation into his voice that I don't know if it's supposed to signify angst or emotional or physical pain, but you can hear it. Like his voice definitely bends to the point of like, you know, it might be polarizing for some people. I'm sure that they could say the same thing about Black Francis, who I mentioned earlier. And John and I have talked about this ad nauseum on the channel, whether it's him talking about the Pixies or bands that I know have been influenced by the Pixies that I listen to, that he then identifies that similarity when he's listening to them. But nonetheless, I mean, it exists here, and it's I don't want to speak for John, but I would assume in his estimation and in mine that that's what gives it this character or this edge that we kind of are drawn to about it. Which also leads me to another reason why I like this, which is it scratches a certain nostalgia itch. You know, I've talked about this before, but like my musical awakening sort of came in two phases. And phase one is listening to music and absorbing it in sort of this acquisition situation where I didn't pick the song, I didn't pick the band, it was put on around me by others, by my elders, and I then fell in love with it through this acquisition process. And then come about, I don't know, 11, 12, 13, 14, and so on, then that, you know, that phase in my, you know, musical fandom switches to more of like a more personalized approach, like what I liked, what I listened to, what I sought out and discerned, you know, as I got older. And this is around the time of that phase of my musical awakening, this alternative rock sound of the early and mid 90s. This song is soaked in that sound. And even though I've never heard this before or heard of the band, it still speaks to me because it sounds like so much stuff that I fell in love with during that pivotal point in my growth as a fan of music. So yeah, oddly, it really resonated with me on a whole nother level beyond just liking or disliking the song. It digs further into the why, and I sometimes it's hard to understand why you like a song when you've only listened to it once and that's it. You don't have time to really like marinate on it and digest it and come to some educated conclusions. But with this, it came pretty quickly. This is the sound of an era where I truly fell in love with music. So yeah, this is really great stuff. I loved the sort of unkempt nature of it while it's still sounding good. It didn't completely fly off the rails. So yeah, really enjoyed this track. Another three piece that really knows how to bring the power, despite the fact that there's only three of them. And that's another thing that we've noted several times on this channel. So yeah, I'm all ready to learn more. I'm all ears. So let's get back to John and do just that.
Language, Timothy. He's back. So you've had to listen to All Sideways with Scarce. What say you?
Oh man, there's a lot to say in the wake of giving this thing a listen. It's amazing how sometimes a song can sound so familiar or scratch some sort of itch when you know you've never heard a band before or a song before, yet it still had that sort of weird, there's some weird connection there. I'll get into that a little bit as I go through. So for a second or two, just as the song kicks off, we get treated to some interesting bit of whirring and feedback. The sounds akin to the scanning of a radio dial or some other interesting transmission, all before the band formally join in, led by a very fuzzy and hazy thick guitar. And this hits like this great wave crashing in through the speakers, or in this case, my earbuds. And it is it's powerful and insistent. This motif chugs forward with dashes of like sonic pitch. I don't know, experimentation by the guitar. You just hear these little bits of like pitch manipulation happening along with the more present chugging effect that it provides. The singer joins in singing and repeating red's the sky, and so am I. And when he hits the and so am I line, he does so with a strained affectation to his delivery, almost like he's wincing. I believe you might describe it as a bit of gurning was going on when he was hitting that. Then after he repeats this, the song moves into this sort of semi-clipped palm muting motif, which only leans further into the chugging aesthetic they've crafted here. And over this portion, he sings "Kiss Me Once on the Eye." And that also is done so in this affected manner before the song opens up a bit. Then he goes into this labored vocal run, echoing the word "I." This is followed by the next line, which he delivers the same way as he sings "Kiss Me Once and Say Goodbye." Again, the "I" in goodbye is played with by our vocalist. This feels like a little bit of a role reversal here, as I'm going to say something that you often say when I give you material that is cut from a similar cloth. And this sounds like something very much inspired by the sound of the Pixies. Black Francis, if you're listening, please reach out to John. He's been waiting for years now. And just as I mentioned the Pixies, we are regaled with sounds of a female vocalist who I would cut pieces of throughout the. Yeah, I know.
Imagine that.
Yeah, imagine it. Also imagine this. She plays the bass.
I know.
Which I then confirm as I catch a glimpse of her picking away at a Fender P bass. And it's almost like that Spider-Man meme where the multiple Spider-Mans are pointing at each other. It's the Pixies, it's these guys, it's insert any of the other bands that often, stole on or were inspired by the sound of the Pixies. Even his, like, that gurning that I spoke of is super Black Francis. You know what I mean? She repeats the lines how far, how wide" several times before the lead singer screeches out "all sideways," which is then repeated several times by both singers. This gives way to some more of that rhythmic chugging motif before the lead singer questions the whereabouts of the sky several times, while occasionally noting it went so high in that exaggerated fashion he used in the first verse. And the bassist takes over singing the same portion as earlier about it's concerning the distance and width, all while the guitar kind of sonically whines and twists in the background, which is funny because at this point it's as if the guitar is doing similar things to its sound that the lead singer is doing with his voice. This that gurning or affectation you feel not only when he sings, but it's present in some of the guitar work that for the most part is kind of like a step behind the rest of the sound that's going on in the track. But I thought it was interesting that there was the same approach to some of his vocal delivery he would employ in his guitar work as well. Um, so yeah, we get more repetitions of the two singing the titular line as the song forcefully chugs forward to completion, ending with some more interesting and faint dissonance from the guitar before coming to a full stop. I mean, come on. We're both big fans of this sound and this genre in general, so of course I'm going to find comfort and familiarity in this song despite having never heard it before. There is something about like this point in the alternative rock timeline that feels so right. Likely it's this nostalgia of this sounding like the second wave of my musical awakening, which is perhaps the most important phase for me, since it's when I stopped acquiring musical tastes directly from others and started seeking out what I liked without provocation or suggestion. Um, and if I had, heard them then, I'm sure I'd still be listening to them now. So, all that out of the way, please tell me more about this band and this track, John. A band that sounded far, not that, I mean, come on, dude, we're talking about the Pixies, they're American, but this band sounds American to me, which isn't like anything crazy. You've given me plenty of American bands before, but they do have an American sound to them. That might be because they sound like the Pixies, an American band, but go on.
Yeah, thanks for that. And a really interesting band and story. I'm definitely going to give you at least one, probably two more, so it ends up as a playlist by
Yeah.
this band. But there's one coming definitely. Yeah, I'll get into it. So they were formed in Providence, Rhode Island, which is in the United States of America, in 1993. They're known as alternative rock. So after the Boston alternative rock band Anastasia Screamed, terrible name, broke up in 1992. Good. The singer, Chick Graining. Do you know, I never know how to pronounce his name. I'm going to go Raining. This is not a double N. Looks like the E's been cut off with the ing. Chick Graining, let's go with that. Moved to Rhode Island to live with then fiance Tanya Donnelly of Belly, previously of Throwing Muses. He also there he met Joyce Raskin, who attended the Rhode Island School of Design. So the two of them began writing songs together and performed with the drummer Judd Erbar. Scarce quickly became the subject of major label bidding wars. Their live shows were quite legendary. They put out 3 singles on their own before finally signing to A&M Records in late '94, around the time where Groening and Donnelly broke up their relationship. Erbar then left the group to form his own band, the Space Needle, and Scarce recorded its debut album with Boston session drummer Mike Levinsky. The album was released in England in June '95, with a US release shortly planned to follow. However, Groening failed to show up for practice one day. So that there is the UK copy. Bear that in mind. Raskin Levisque went to his Providence home, and after kicking in the door, they discovered Groening on the floor unconscious. He was rushed to the hospital where it was discovered he had suffered a near-fatal brain hemorrhage. Doctors gave Groening a 10% chance of survival. So obviously the American release of the album was postponed, and the single Honey Simple was pulled. And Groening then spent the next 9 months, can't believe it was only 9 months, relearning how to walk and how to talk, and then how to relearn how to play his guitar and sing his songs.
Oh my God.
Once he had recovered, the band then added new drummer, Joe Propatier, and re-recorded much of the album Dead Sexy. All Sideways that you listened to was originally released as their second EP back in '94, and they re-recorded it for the album twice. So the album was finally released in the States a year later, in '97. Sorry, the October '96. It boasted new tracks with Roberto on drums and a new song order as well. So if you get the digital version, which I've got, it's a completely different order. There are 3 or 4 different songs on there as well. After his hemorrhage, Groening found that he and Raskin had drifted apart, both musically and emotionally. And so the US release of Dead Sexy was October '96, but by early '97, the band had broke up. Looking back, this is such an understatement, they stated they probably should have had a break after Groening's aneurysm. Oh, shit. So, yeah, there's a difference because with the re-recording in particular, the criticism was that the studio versions of their songs kind of lack the edge of live stuff, which is often the case with bands. But there's a real difference in the sound, particularly in the drums. Obviously, there's different people. But there is a slight more smoothing off of the American version than the UK vinyl version. The one you listened to was the US version. It's slightly more gritty, the UK one. But there you go.
Yeah.
So personnel: Chick Groening, vocals, guitar; Joyce Raskin, bass, vocals; Judd Erbar, drums until '95; Mike Levisque, drums until June '95, and then Joseph Propatier, drums. AllMusic said what should have been a hit album during the alternative rock boom of the mid-90s became a forgotten record after Chick Groening's brain hemorrhage and Scarce's subsequent disbanding. Nonetheless, Dead Sexy is full of great, catchy rock songs that show off Groening's sense of melody and his uniquely expressive voice, intense, scratchy, and soothing all at once with an astonishing range. The sense of drama evokes David Bowie, while the band's guitar textures and the dynamic between Groening and bassist Joyce Raskin recalls the seminal New England alternative rock band, the Pixies.
There we go.
Never saw that coming. Lyrics, you quite point out: red's the sky, and so am I. Red's the sky, red's the sky, red's the sky. Red's the sky, red's the sky, and so am I. Red's the sky, red's the sky. Kiss me once and say goodbye. How far, how far, how wide, how far, how far, how wide, how far, how far, how wide, how far, how wide. Sideways, all sideways, all sideways, or sideways, or sideways, or sideways, or sideways, or sideways. Where's the sky? Where's the sky? It went high. Where's the sky? Where's the sky? Where'd the sky go? Where's the sky? Where's the sky? It went high. Where's the sky? Where's the sky? I don't know. Kiss me once on the eye. Kiss me once and say goodbye. How far, how wide, how far, how wide, how far, how far, how wide, how far, how far, how wide, how far, how wide. Sideways, or 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 sides. So there you go. The song is written basically as an emotional breakup song, where after the final goodbye, the singer loses all their bearings and sense of scale, the loss of stability and foundations that rule their life. After the band split, Groening started a solo career and also worked as a stagehand. Raskin suffered a breakdown.
Hmm.
Eventually, she wrote an illustrated book about her experiences called Aching to Be. The book was published in 2007. Before publishing the book, Raskin contacted Groening, sending him a draft copy, and this contact then led to Scarce reforming. In 2008, they reformed, they released an EP and toured the UK in 2008 and 2009. I think the album Dead Sexy is definitely a cult album, and I think not unlike the Pixies, bigger over here than in the US, particularly at the time anyway.
Yeah.
In 2010, Joyce Raskin wrote and illustrated a book called The Fall and Rise of Circus Boy Blue that incorporated Scarce's lyrics into the story. And in 2011, recorded versions of the songs in The Fall and Rise of Circus Boy were made available on Bandcamp, forming Scarce's second album. Their last actual release was the EP Noble Scars in 2016. They are apparently still going. I don't know if they're just touring and doing stuff, but who knows. And just as a side note, all of their artwork, including that there, are paintings by the bassist Raskin, which is really interesting. So yeah, I thought, and that's about as much as you get on Scarce. They're really interesting. Everyone cites obviously the brain aneurysm episode as a keynote within it, but they're a really interesting band. The song I gave you is probably the most sort of twisty, bendy, and off-center song of the whole album, probably. Highly Simple is the next one I can give you. It's a bit more sort of grungy. And there's some they do stray into almost a fairly straightforward sort of, alternative rock sound as well. Really good album, though. I'd say there's a good 4 or 5 absolutely outstanding tracks on there. And for the most part, if you like the sound, then you like it all, which I do. So it's a really interesting timing. We've said this before with other bands and things like that, but these guys could have been absolutely huge. If they come out and they've had all the impetus at the time in '96, it would have really worked. But clearly, them getting back together, re-recording it, and then trying to push it out there when he wasn't probably completely right. Yeah, there's an emotional effort involved as well, isn't there? And I think that consequence of his aneurysm would take a long time to get over, not just 9 months. I mean, it's amazing that he managed to not only learn to speak and walk again, but then to play his guitar and sing as well, all in 9 months is incredible.
It would have been beneficial if someone had the foresight
Take
or
your time.
ability to just say, like, that's great, but that doesn't mean we need to rush to the next phase of then recording and releasing an album. Like, let's just, take a breath here. Get our bearings.
But there you go.
Yeah.
What could have been?
Exactly.
But yeah, really interesting. And as you say, there's similarities there between some of the sort of grungier sound. Definitely that dynamic. So this song in particular, which is why I chose it, has that certain sound from, and as you know, I have particular fondness for bands with female bass players,
And they weren't hard to come by during this period of time, you know what I mean?
It's amazing how certain trends go, and that was one of them. It was quite strange, but cool, excellent. All right, I shall wrap things up. Thanks for listening to Sandy.
Well, thank you for offering it up.
Yeah, folks out there, please tell us what you think. If you like this, do hit the like button and drop some comments. Let us know what you think of this track. If you're familiar with Scarce, I never listened to that second album. I was told it was a bit of a stinker, but somebody else who might be familiar with it, let us know. It's worth checking out.
That's what I was going to actually ask you, what their post-Reformation sound, if that held up or anything.
I'm always a bit wary, but then you got the exception though. You like Slow Dive, it's like 22 years or whatever it is, and then wow, best thing they've ever done.
Yeah.
So it probably is worth checking out at some point. But yeah, please do drop the comments, guys, and girls, and all those in between. If you haven't subscribed already, please do. We really appreciate everybody who does support the channel. So hitch on and hold on and rock on. With that being said, thanks so much for watching, and we'll see all of you on the next episode of The Audiophiles.
See you later, guys.